Greetings, Lazarus members, and I'm delighted today to have one of my dearest friends join us. She's a fellow of the New Earth University and doing some tremendous coursework there. We're talking today across a subject which I think you're going to find increasingly becomes paramount to the way in which we view ourselves and so-called reality, which is really supplanting the old mythos of time and money and fear with the elevation of art and beauty and consciousness, the stuff that certainly I've been banging that drum for a very long time. And Jane is a prolific writer and poet and artist, a longtime contributor and friend of the Lazarus Initiative. You can read her editorial, which is called Primary Water, in the Lazarus Journal, Volume 4, which is available, I'm told, this month. Today, we're discussing her radical new project, which is about creation currency. It's called Creation Currency. Creation Currency as antidote to the Great Reset. Jane, very happy to have you here.
Thank you, Sacha. Very happy to be here.
Okay, so we've decided we're parachuting straight into this with a whole bunch of images, not exactly random, but we're just going to be filing through images and then speaking to them, what they evoke as part of this broad conversation. The question that we kick off with, obviously, is what is creation currency and how is creation currency an antidote to the Great Reset?
Okay, so creation currency is basically high vibrational wealth. So if you're an artist, dance, sing, tell jokes, share ideas, a whole gamut of things, but as long as it's in a soulful, positive way, which holds a high vibration, you'll have creation currency.
Okay.
And we all have it. We're born with it.
Good. What is the Dance at the Moulin Rouge by my favorite artist, actually, of all time, Toulouse-Lautrec? I studied him as a child. I was madly in love with him. Aristide Bruant and all the shenanigans going on and at that time with the French Impressionists. So there's very little I don't know about Toulouse-Lautrec. Why did you choose this image?
I chose this because, number one, they're dancing and they're just throwing their creation currency all over the place. And the other reason I chose it was because I believe Impressionism was the last real art movement we had before they butchered it and took it.
Beautiful. The Passion of Creation, Joaquin Sorolla, and this is in the late 19th century and early 20th century.
Just because it is the passion of creation, I thought it would be a beautiful image to show. I believe it's the period of Romanticism too.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed. Must toiling man forever meet disgrace and eat his hard-earned bread with heated face, and all his acts in dull oblivion lay. That's on labor, creativity, and patriotism. Joseph Mallard, William Turner. What a magnificent creature he was.
He was one of the most amazing artists ever. He's one of my all-time favorites.
Yes.
So this is just on the theme of creativity, to just get what is the contrast between what the Great Reset creates around us is this toiling man and this hard-earned bread with heated face and this dull oblivion. This is what they want to deliver to us, yet our creativity is the most valuable stuff on earth.
Right.
And they would rather we believed that gold and platinum were the most amazing assets you could ever get your hands on.
Right.
But it's really us. And so they've taken that from us, usurped it, and used it for their own agenda in a magnificent way.
Very good.
And so what we have to do is turn around and take that back, because this creative currency stuff is the most powerful thing you can ever get your hands on. And the reason I'm showing a bank here is because that is what they use to control us. Yet we have something so much more superior to that, because I believe a lot of them aren't even creative themselves. You know, these bloodlines and these royals and these monarchs, they don't have it. They use us for it. And also, I found it really interesting in this particular picture that there sits the bank from Tartaria, and across the street is a little shed, and there's the little horses and carts that we just rode in on.
Yes, indeed, indeed.
Oh, and this is really interesting because it's called the Palace of Westminster. And now that today is the Houses of Parliament, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So
right.
it was a palace. So this is another of their usurping of the magnificent, incredible Tartarian architecture that I believe that they just moved into and said, look how powerful we are.
The golden age.
Look what we've created.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
And then this illustrates too, all of these pictures are from the 1800s, because they're doing the same thing today that they were doing back then. This is called the bad doctors. And that is part of the Great Reset, because the COVID element would now be what was once the Black Plague, followed by the Renaissance, which to me was the reset, another reset.
Yeah.
And the Renaissance being the art orgy that it was. I believe what happened was, as we came out of that Renaissance period, art had been elevated to such a degree that the creativity level had been lifted. And that is when you move into the area where all this new technology and using the ether for energy, and with the electric bikes and the electric cars and all of that, the Zeppelins and all of that came in right after the Renaissance. And also the Vatican was there in Italy when all that was happening, funded by the de Medici family, which is one of those bloodlines, which is what leads me to believe that that was actually a reset. And that reset was to absolutely annihilate and excommunicate the divine feminine from the arts.
Very good.
Forward.
So what? Put a date on this, more or less.
Well, you had the fall of Rome, then you had the Dark Ages with the Black Plague, and then the Renaissance was basically the 1400s all the way to the 1700s. But remember, back then things moved way more slowly than they do now, because we've just speeded up time so fast. So that was a sort of a successful reset, but kind of a failed one.
Yeah, I understood. And of course, taking into account seminal datelines from the fall of Rome, and in 4th century, the Council of Nicaea, the weaponization of Christianity, the commandeering of Christianity by the flailing Roman Empire, which then propped itself up using the Christed gospel, and then took that into full-fledged blood ritualism in the Roman Catholic Church, predicated on the murder of the Cathars, marching through 1066, Doomsday, which was really the onset of bureaucracy and codification of human beings, registration of land and titles, and
the Battle of Hastings.
All of that stuff, taking us really up to the 15th century, a seminal series of datelines, 1430s, 40s, and 50s, in the 15th century, which was the onset of the real pestilence of the Roman Catholic Church, meaning to say the doctrines of discovery, Hernan Cortés setting off and planting a flag in Mexico, and the massacre of the black skin, brown skin, red skin, yellow skin people all around the world that issued from that. That was connected to the 9 gates of hell opening up, which closed in 1987 with the harmonic convergence, and then led to 2012, 2020, and really we're right now in the quickening. We're in the quickening. But what inspired your concept of creation currency?
Oh, it's I read this study that this guy did. His name is Dr. George Land. And so I had just started making this book, Learn or Teach the Basics of Art in 10 Steps, because I had felt like there was this dire need for us to have something, all of it under one roof.
Yes.
That you could get your hands on, because this book includes inspiration methods, positive meditations, and it's very simple. So this is that Dr. Land's show he put on. What you're looking at now is how the brain is affected when you go into the divergent side of the brain. It tends to spark up the whole brain. And then when you're in stress and fear, obviously your whole brain isn't lit up, and then and there's a middle area there. But anyway, the point is here that what happened was I was reading this study, and then he started talking about the remedy. And I just cracked up laughing, because he said the remedy is to go to your little 5-year-old self and go into your divergent side of your brain and take a fork and devise how many ways you could improve on this fork.
Very good.
And so I was thinking, why, Mr. Dr. Land, why don't you take that fork and put it where the sun don't shine, because this doesn't help humanity at all. What the fork that we need to look at is the fork in the road of humanity, whether it goes the demise way or into this beautiful new golden age.
Yeah, understood.
That's what we need our brains for.
So let's catch up with the slides here. Let's talk about unlearning.
Well, this is badly put, because he says unlearning and then he says divergent thinking, but it looks like it says unlearning divergent thinking.
Yeah.
So this man who discovered a way to test creativity and came up with the realization that 98% of us are born creative geniuses.
Yes.
And this is his slideshow, not very creative. I'd move on to the next one if I was. So the outcome of the study was that he started with 5-year-olds. Well, first of all, he went to NASA, and they asked him to do the study. Maybe even your friend Shania Soni did the study. Who knows? But anyway, he then met his a colleague, and they both went out into the big, wide, real world, and they got 1,600 children, and they tested them at the age of 4, 5. And as you can see, by the age of 10, there was only 30% of that 1,600 left, creative geniuses. Yeah. And then as they got to 15, it was only 12. And then when they reached adulthood, it's down to 2%. So they concluded that what basically our education system does is just wring the creativity right out of us.
Yeah.
And so this is my solution, is to bring the two parts of the brain together so they work cohesively, maybe even merge, use your entire brain.
Sorry about that. This is so bloody typical. Hold the line there. I've got to stop this bloody Skype. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Carry right on.
So I'm not a scientist, but I am an artist, and I understand the process of creating art. And it's really, really quite a magical process when you really go into it, because it teaches you to take 3D elements and your art materials, and you can actually move into a 5D realm with your paints and your brushes and your, as long as you've learned those basics and you know what they are.
Yes.
Because as you're painting, you are holding all those elements of the basics in your head at one time, such as composition, light, color, form. And every brush that you make, you must hold all that in your head at once. And you're arranging things, you are getting rid of things, you're bringing things in. Yeah. And this is what nature does in the creation process. So as you're doing this as well, because you're so focused, you are losing time. And as soon as you lose time, there you are with the all that is in no time. And that is the
you sound like a poor man Sacha Stone lecture on time here. I'm joking, darling. I know what you're saying. Of course, I've been promulgating this and preaching it for an awful long time. So this audience understands full well that the
reason that I'm bringing that up is not to steal anything that you know about. It's to show the process, because when you look at music, art, history, geography, biology, science, none of that happens in that process.
Correct.
And if you teach children at a young age, from a young age, if you teach them art properly, they will be able to use the actual art process itself. Yeah. Forget about the image they make, forget about what the painting looks like, you know. They will be able to then take that process as they are being educated through the system, very much unlike what it is today with his results, Dr. George's results, and whatever chosen discipline they choose to follow, whatever passion is theirs, they can then take that and apply it. And for instance, the other day I went to quantum.gov and I saw that they were looking for, worldwide, they were searching for people who could take this new quantum information and apply it to new ideas and products and things like that. But they couldn't find anybody in America. Why? Because we haven't been educated properly in our creativity. So what I'm saying is also in that space where you lose time when you're painting, you're immediately connected to the cosmos and universal information and knowledge, and it comes through. Yeah. And you're inspired by that. And a lot of the problem today is that everybody's so busy on computers, they're creating art on their computer, and that is actually a firewall to the connection to Prime Creator.
Very good.
So there's very few artists left. I think the reason I put this one in is that it's always the same old stuff. I mean, you can see the beautiful sculpture there, but you can see Goya's rendition of what was really going on. Yeah. Not very much more different from what's going on now. And this is the Great Reset, people. These are the satanic elements that we're fighting. Yeah. And it should be a pretty easy job to overcome them with our creativity.
And by contrast, Venus Italica by Canova?
Well, very beautiful, because at the same time, there's beautiful people and loving, wonderful people, far more than there are these little bloodline families.
Napoleon I on his imperial throne.
Of course, that was those times, but you know, we still have royalty, we still have the monarchy. I'm sure King Charles isn't going to last, but there we go. They're trying to push it forward into the future, and that its time has gone. And the reason the flood is there is because it's evidence of the mud floods.
Yes.
So I put that in because that's a huge part of where we came from and how the mud floods were used to crush
Very
and
interesting.
Destroy all
Very
that beauty that was Tartaria.
William Blake, I traveled through a land of men and women too, and heard and saw such dreadful things as cold earth wanderers never knew. Wonderful.
And there's this sun god.
Right. Ra.
So we've been dealing with this for a long time. So the answer now is to take the children, teach them properly how to do art. So in my dreams, this old crazy lady here dreams about handing out a protocol to the world on how to teach art properly so that we can get to this place. And then there's the people with art freeze. You know, they started painting or drawing when they were young, and suddenly their teacher came along and gave them an F because they were copying something and it wasn't quite the right color. And then they just gave up.
Yeah.
And and teachers use their personal preferences, which is an ungodly thing to do
Well, it's
with
a crime. It's a crime indeed.
And another thing they do is called minor surgery, and they'll take a pen or something and correct something on a student's work.
Yeah.
It's unforgivable. So you've got art freeze, which is easy to fix, and it can be easily fixed by going through and starting all over, doing the basics. And here you have what I'm trying to say is the power of what memes have done for patriots in the time that we're in now. I actually did this meme myself, but it says it perfectly. There's the World Economic Forum, and the Pope's going down, and it's like he's at the top of the whole thing, really. Him and the Queen were, and he's probably going to die very, very soon. So I just don't see them getting anywhere with their Great Reset.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've seen those pictures, but there's one of Klaus Schwab in a bridal bikini on a beach. And there's another one of Hebraeus, World Health Organization, wiggling his little...
Oh, I played that to my audience, I think. Yes. Tedros, whatever his name is.
Hebraeus.
Yes. The World Health Organization Secretary General wearing his little ladies' halter piece with his little titties hanging out in a tranny club. Yeah, no, that was quite extraordinary when that hit my desk. Loved it.
So how can we take these people seriously, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, it begs the question, how do we take them seriously at the time of Queen Elizabeth I, for Christ's sake? You know, the woman poncing around with the ludicrous costumes on a white face and all the romantic bullshit that's been attributed to that era. Not forgetting that it was her spy master general, Sir Francis Walsingham, who really began the genesis of the whole, surveillance and, spying and intelligence communities, CIA, MI5, all of that stuff, OSS, all of that stuff issued off Sir Francis Walsingham, spy master general under Elizabeth I. Point being, this has gone on for an awful long time, this theatrical production. And like you quite rightly say, Jane, I mean, for God's sake, it's over, it's dead. It's dead.
All right. So this is about what they've done to art to obfuscate us. They've obfuscated art. They call this Duchamp's urinal art. And then this Catalan's banana was much more recent. And they got people to buy this art. They didn't even buy the banana or the masking tape. They bought a piece of paper that he signed, and it had the instructions on how to install this art. So, the angle of the banana and the length of the masking tape, and there is a tack underneath that goes into the wall. And the only way you could put it up was if you got his little piece of paper with that. This is just ridiculous. And no wonder people just shake their head and they go, oh, I think I'll just buy a still life because I know what it is.
And not forgetting, Jane, that art in that sense has also been the utility of huge scamming, fraud and scamming and money laundering. Huge. I mean, billions and billions and billions of dollars worth. I mean, it's a huge industry. Buying art with an attributed value of $348 million for some risible little sketch by Picasso or whoever, and then that receipt just becomes really a little chit that allows you to play games. But the point being that I can't remember what the figure is, but it's something like 60% of all the most expensive, valuable art pieces on the planet don't even see the light of day. They're in warehouses. No one can even see them because they're under lock.
Correct.
Yeah.
That happened to Basquiat's skull painting. He sold it for $19,000, and years later, after he had died, I think they turned around and sold it for like $110 million. And also, speaking to the money laundering thing, they did that big time in Mexico, and then the government put a stop to it. And to bear witness to that statement, you said the art sales dropped by 70%.
Right. Right.
And what this image speaks to here is the fact that, you know, we're told that most people say, I can't even draw a stick figure, and they look at the Van Gogh and they go, oh, if you become a fine artist, you'll just end up being poverty stricken and starving and mad. And so the only way you can make money from art now is through a commercial venue. So that's where everyone's being steered toward that, because it's safe, you earn a living. And so it sucks that fine art element. Well, here's a good example of, so USD $12,740,000 for this.
Oh my Lord. Would you look at that?
And there it is. That's your, you know, and we put up with this, and it's all the elitist ways of moving money around, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. And Soho and Hollywood have so many things in common. I put this here because they have, it's called Sip and Paint wine art parties, and everyone in the whole room paints the same thing while they're drinking wine. And this is supposed to be called an art class. And this is the lows that we have come to as far as art. And it's copying something. Everybody copies it. So here we are.
Love it.
And this also speaks to the power of images, how the Great Reset Schwabian philosophy, you know, of it's to use this art to gather people to go to war, and they've used it for so long in this way, and it's just a very simple thing for us to pick it up and turn around and aim it right back at them. I mean, we can do this, you know, there's more of us than there are of them.
Yes, indeed. Now, on the question I had here was, why is visual art so, actually before that, how does one build a creation currency portfolio, and what is your remedy to maintaining an optimum level of human creativity in order for humanity to reach the crossroads after and if the Great Reset is thwarted?
Okay, well, the first thing doesn't have anything to do with art at all. It's about outright denouncing the Satanism and the monarchies that have filled this world with all the dark energy for so long. We have to get rid of that.
Yes.
So then what we do is we have to retrieve the creative genius level that we now know, you know, from the NASA study, by practicing art. It's so simple. Art materials are so simple to get your hands on. And obviously these protocols of creation in turn are linked to prime creator. That's where we come from.
Very good.
So it seems that since the advent of computers, as I said, there's less and less artists. So there's less and less creativity, because art is such a natural way to express.
Yeah.
And it's only really through art that you can find this particular process. Of course, architecture, you can, but you end up more applying your ideas and your creative ideas and everything to the actual drawing or the blueprint rather than in the building of it. But when you're creating the art, that's it. That's what you're getting. That's the final result. If you sing, you're in a high vibration, or speak, your voice is going out into the world, but you don't have anything tangible to show for it at the end. If you dance, you're moving around, you know, the butterfly wing thing. Music is incredible, but then they weaponize that too, you know, when what did they do?
Why am I having images of Nicholas Tesla come up? I'm very confused.
Oh, you're having images of Nikola Tesla because
are you seeing the screen or not? Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, I see the screen. That is art, but it's called a diagram. And without those drawings, Tesla himself wouldn't have being able to create what it is that he was creating. Those are the diagrams. So if you move ahead, there's a few more. And you'll see how everything is, but we won't call this art. We call it a diagram. But this is some of the most powerful art you'll ever see on planet Earth.
Agreed.
And it has the power to change the world.
Agreed.
And then, of course, following him, I used Leonardo da Vinci because he was outstanding as well. But I'm in two minds about da Vinci because I feel like this great reset mindset, if you will, co-opted him to do their bidding, and he was creating some very robotic looking things.
Darling, he was, he couldn't have survived without patronage, and that was the thing. In those days, the days of the Medicis and the black nobility were really, flying high, and they took great pride in patronizing the great sculptors and artists and artisans of the day. And so, when his patron summoned him in, to paint a portrait of, or of one of the family members or whatever, and then, on the side said, help us build a cannon or a catapult or a trebuchet or something. It was, I guess, very difficult for them to say no to their patrons who they relied on for their bread and butter.
Well, to me, that was the very, very first steps, the beginning of transhumanism.
Oh,
he was going into the body. He was looking very deeply. He was opening up bodies. He was creating very robotic kinds of things. And to me, that was the reset that maybe it wasn't called transhumanism then, but that was the very first beginning of it, looking inside to see what could be done.
But Jane, surely they were that era of great engineer artists was all about working out the mechanics of biology and of astronomy and so on. So, I mean, I get why you think it was a kind of AI transhumanist thing, but I see it the other way around. I think they were deducing for the first time the machinations of the human body and of, the heavenly, the firmament and what have you. Or maybe you're right, but I don't know. I think they were more innocent than that. And certainly so many of the beautiful images that issued through the Michelangelos and the artists like we're looking at here, Da Vinci. There's a beautiful humanistic innocence, I think, to a lot of the expressions, a lot of the images. I don't see it as being nefarious, put it that way,
Well, I was actually referring more to the robotics that the machinery, the machines of war that he was starting to make.
Right.
But not the AI at all. No relationship to AI at all. Just the early first little baby steps of transhumanism.
Yeah.
And also it was the beginning of bringing in the synthetic against the organic, the energies that sever our divine connection. They had a divine connection to cosmos, but they've always sought to keep it to themselves.
Yes. So communing with higher self.
Oh, this is a set of works that I put in that are my art, just to show the heights that can be reached, not as I'm saying as a craftsman or as an artist, but conceptually what we can share with our brethren and sistren, and the power of art to move from that 3D level using the art materials into the more conceptual area. And as you go forward, you'll see the names of each piece is a part of the puzzle of humanity moving forward into this new age of enlightenment that's coming, and we have to get ready for it.
Very beautiful.
And I feel that art is really a superb way to connect with that universal intelligence and glean inspiration from it. It just teaches us how to do that. And maybe you might start painting, and maybe then you might take your art into the obvious things like a more beautiful garden, cooking more nicely, presentation. then what will happen, it will evolve into other areas of life where you are looking at the elements that you've been given to make something with, until you get to the point where, as a scientist, you've learned to play with those elements in a very alchemical way to create something very beautiful and that's helpful for the planet moving forward, service to others.
Yes.
This kind of thing. And if you're stuck in your little job, in your little cubby, and you're told what to do, we're never going to break out of all this. So to me, that's what ascension looks like. There'll be many, many people that are thinking, I just can't wrap my head around this ascension thing. But it's just a helpful visual that will put you into that place,
Yes.
And this is inspired by people who lived so close to the earth. They used to dress with the nature around them, the Omo people in the Omo River Basin in Ethiopia.
Mm. Love it. This is like Matisse, but better. And I'm a huge fan of Matisse, huge fan. But I'm a bigger fan of yours.
Oh, thank you, Sacha. I really appreciate that. So this is what I'm saying. We're grasping, we're looking, we see time moving faster, and we know there's different timelines, and we're wondering what's going on. And then I'll step into the ring and say, hey, let's start rearranging the space-time continuum ourselves. You know what I mean? Just that concept it's in our hands. We've let everything go, and everybody's an expert, and they all know better, and we're just going to sit here and wait to be saved. No, we're not. We're going to step forward, and we're going to do everything we can conceptually to change things. This one is obviously inspired by the fact that there's so much synthetic coming into our lives from every realm, air, sea, and sky. You had those amazing conferences of the weaponization of the biosphere that I attended in Bali, and that was just mind-blowing. And this painting was painted not long after that.
Okay.
And here's Chanting Destiny. Our destiny is in our hands. We can do it. We need to step up and start doing that instead of sitting back and obviously paying our taxes. And
beautiful. Thank you for that. Absolutely beautiful. We should do an auction at some point, darling. I'd love to do an auction of your work. So how does creation currency aid in the positive evolution of humankind, and how is it that art is such a major player in our journey toward enlightenment, in your view?
Well, it's a major player because of almost everything I've said. And the reason we need to do this is because we have to prepare ourselves. But after this shit show, we're going to get to the other side of it eventually. It's going to require a gigantic amount of creativity moving forward. Zombies will not be able to enter this realm that we're going.
Okay, so I just want to break it down to a kind of one primary element. The question was really trying to drive toward how does creation currency aid in the positive evolution of humankind? Well, is it because art demarcates the transcendent aspect of the creature, of the mammal? Because we're a mammal, we're a dog, a cat, a goat, an elephant, a dolphin, and one is in that sense at one with the typhonic consciousness or with natural law, but they're not painting or sculpting or engineering per se. People would argue that spiders engineer and birds' nests are an engineering feat, but that's more just connected into the kind of weird business of being born one of those creatures with those instincts. But I'm talking about creative nous, to have aesthetic and to be able to throw a pot of ceramics, to create a batik, have a vision and then to cast it into the ideation, into form. So is that why art is so important? Because it's
Absolutely. It's the process that is so amazing. It might not be the pot at the end. The pot may very well be very beautiful.
right.
But it's the process that teaches us to take ourselves into greater and greater. Our creative aura is so much bigger than we've been led to believe.
Very good.
And we're going to need that kind of creative armor going forward when everything else falls away.
Very good.
And this shows how in the great civilizations all held art and the arts in such high esteem. There's the palace, and over there is the artist's quarters, right there next to the palace.
Wow.
And this is in Greece. And we don't do that anymore. And after that, it was the Renaissance. They held the arts in high esteem. All great civilizations have held the arts in high esteem. We do not. We've just butchered them and turned them into something so ugly. When we look at music, what's been done to music, it's just abhorrent. And the lyrics, and just made everything nasty. You know, it's no longer beautiful.
Yes, I hear you. I was talking about that just today with a dear friend of mine, and speaking about the fact that in fact, we were just going through a feed on Facebook, and just, which I love doing. For me, it's such incredible entertainment to just go onto the Facebook feed, the kind of generic one, and then just see the kind of trivia, the kind of trivial shit that's trending. And what it occurred to me, we lurched from fist fights, schoolgirls, young girls, 15, 16-year-old girls, compilations of them just punching each other's lights out and clawing each other's eyes out and ripping chunks of their hair out in the schoolyard and in the ghettos and on the streets, and the screeching going on. And then, of course, the cage fighters and the fist fights of men, and pub brawls, and those things are constantly trending. Those really grisly, nasty, bare knuckle things, bestial, animalistic in extreme. And then moving on to chefs and cuisine and cooking, and lots of that, lots of fancy baking and amazing cooking and cuisine. So everything appetite led, but a lot of bestiality and pornographicization of everything, meanness of spirit, aggressivity, and a sheer singular absence of kindness and decency and morality and sweetness. None of it. Didn't see a single meme, except when you come, of course, to, you know, some diehard Christian zealot who puts up an image of an angel, and then some, you know, coy little meme. But I'm just looking at that, and I was bereft after 30 minutes of flipping through the public feed. I was thinking, we have so fucked ourselves as humanity. I mean, what are these young kids, what goes through their minds? They're so steely and so cunning.
Well, this is the problem. It's all coming in from the screens and the devices. Yeah. And there's nothing going out. Nothing's going out. Right. So as soon as you put paper and paint in front of a person or a child or a teenager even, it starts to come out, and it stops that relentless cyber barrage from
bring back beauty.
And the other thing I wanted to say that I missed telling you was, of course, yes, there was the Renaissance, but then there was Tartaria. And if you look at the word Tartaria, you'll see in it, it says art and aria. Oh, yeah. Song of art.
Very good.
And that's almost all it was. Look at this. If you go back, you'll see that it was just endless art. And this is the Renaissance, where they ejected the whole element of women. You can't find women in anything that they did. It was very male oriented.
So they were just scrubbed.
They're just gone. They don't exist. And the other thing is, have another look at the buildings. Did the actual Renaissance usurp and co-opt existing Tartarian
Right,
buildings? Because
right.
it sure looks like it to me.
It sure looks like it to me as well. I mean, bear in mind they were lurching around with oxen and goats, and donkeys. You know, that's my home. Oh,
Yes, and the reason
thank
your
you.
home is there is because I often search the internet looking for beautiful places that.
So you show my bedroom on a public broadcast?
No, because Christy put those in there, and thank you so much, Christy. I love you. And she put them in there so that I could share the beauty of your eye as an architect, as an artist. You're so talented in so many ways. You're a singer. It's just incredible what you do. And so what you're doing now, particularly in Bacala, that's where this learning of arts ends up leading us to.
Well, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's thanks to Juan Schlosser and Jan Bolel, the two very talented architects that I'm blessed to work with. But indeed, you're right. I mean, for me, it's integral. It's integral living in a place of beauty. I cannot live in squalor or in ugliness. Can't do it. Won't do it. Even when I was poor, I used to make my place very, very beautiful, very cozy.
That's it. And, I was saying, I search the internet looking for something that integrates nature and harmony and art and lighting and color and all of those things that you do when you put art together.
Mm.
And I can't find anything. I always go back to Bali and the nighttime picture from the rice paddy fields.
Oh, yeah.
And I will also never forget, for the first time, walking into Akasha and just walking into this place and goosebumps, feeling like I finally came home. You know what I mean?
No, that's so sweet. Well, wait till you see what we're doing in Bacala in Mexico, darling. I can't wait for you to see what we're doing there, because we're taking it to the next level. I mean, Akasha and New Earth Haven in Bali and my home is really just the testing ground, test bed, a 10-year kind of exercise, but it was a test bed for what we're now doing on a monumental scale. And you can literally fit the New Earth Haven and Akasha and my villa in Bali. You could fit it into our land by maybe 1,500 times. So yeah, seriously, no joke. The entire footprint could fit in well over 1,500 times. So we are taking this to the most expansive, idyllic, manifest residential sanctuary. I'm calling it Kingdom of Heaven on Earth, because that's exactly what it is. That's what we're divining, and that's what we're manifesting.
Well, it's just incredible.
Which, of course, goes right against the grain of the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations and the Fabianist agenda, those sons of bitches with their little dark suits and their little dark hearts back in the day, shaping the moral, spiritual, cultural, political, and economic decline of the United States of America. Wow.
So this answers the question of what happened to art, where did it go, and how did they do it? And it's the Brookings and it's the Tavistock. And of course, it was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation in the 1900s. And they all work together to make sure, because that umbrella is cultural. Art comes under the cultural. And then you can see from here, which isn't a great slide, but it's old, and I found it, and I'm excited that I have it. And you can see how it's all linked to the military-industrial complex, the NGOs, the CIA, the media, the government, Tavistock, CFR, and academia, which I call academentia, which is
very good.
Is because it's the great forgetting. They want you to unlearn everything that you came in with and start from scratch with them and their funny ideas.
Well, darling, I tell you that their remonstrations with humanity to forget has not really done much, because we won't forget. And our art and our poetry and our capacity to remember these things through the mists of ages, or even through the mists of incarnations, is something which they cannot contain or enclose or control. But that's also, one imagines, why these deviants go to the extent of this mass mRNA interventionist exercise, pumping these poisons, these gene altering chemicals into human blood all around the world in order to try to create the hack, the bypass that way, because they're not able to curb our genius and our spirit. And the fabric of human soul is not something which can actually be codified or gene sequenced. The fabric of human soul is so fucking quantum, impregnable. Yeah, but that seems to be where we're at. I mean, that very scary image of, we just showed the military industrial, Bilderberg, CFR, governments, all of that stuff. No, despite all that witchery, it seems to me, Jane, certainly with our relationship and with the relationship with the audience looking in, and the subtlety of the narratives that we're investigating here, and the purity that we're shaping and remembering every time we speak to art or beauty or consciousness, every time we engage this kind of plasma engagement with the audience on this kind of subtle nature, it empowers that stuff. It brings that stuff forth, doesn't it? So when people tear their faces away from television screens and billboards and the predictive programming of those satanic images that's constantly bombarding us out there, and instead we use technology to have these conversations and to elevate consciousness, I think we are becoming so remembered to our majesty and to our divinity. That's how I feel.
Well, that sounds like a very nice ending.
Hell no, we're not ending yet, girl. I'm not letting you go yet.
Okay.
I want you to talk about modern art scandal uncovered, our children shipped in boxes as live art under the Art for Embassies program to feed pedophiles and cannibals. Not a pretty picture, but one I think we need to speak to.
Yeah, this has got really bad. It's called shipping live art, and you can do it legally because it's art. And Hillary Clinton was involved in this too, although it did start much earlier, quite a long time ago. I forget the exact year, but she ran in there, supporting this Art for Embassies program like nobody's business, because it was a way that they could get away with it between embassies shipping this live art all around. It's got so bad, Sacha, that it can't get any badder. You know what I mean? And so it has to end. This is what we were speaking to earlier on about the 70% less art sales in Mexico when they changed it around and said you couldn't use it to launder money. So that, it's just part of, they co-opt it, they take our creativity and they turn it into their fiat. Oh, this man is just a horror show on legs. It's just, have you ever heard of him? Jeff Koons?
Yes.
Yeah. He's connected to that whole embassy shipping thing too. And I believe he sold one of the most expensive pieces of art ever to be sold on Earth, and it just looks like a blow up balloon of something. So that was basically connected to money laundering. And here's Basquiat. At first, I thought he was getting away with murder with his paintings, and he was friends with Andy Warhol, and he was sadly addicted to heroin, and he died very young. But when I had a closer look at his work, I can see the passion and the energy in it. And like I said earlier, he sold it for $19,000, and then it went for $110 million when they pulled it out of some basement.
Not that long after he died as well.
It was not long, no.
Yeah. Gosh, extraordinary stuff. Extraordinary stuff. Just referring to my notes here. Yeah, tell us about the upcoming course at New Earth University that you are heading?
Yeah, well, it's exactly what I was explaining today. I hope teachers will come to it, because it's everything I said about the process of art. It's called Holistic Art A to Z. I think you have some visuals on that. So I took a word for the basics of art. Half the class will be about the basics of art and how to learn them, and the other half of the second hour of the class, it'll be the psychological element, like everything that I've told you: academia, beautification, creation, currency, divinity, evolution, the golden age, all of those things, and how to apply them to the art so that we're ready when we go forward into this new age.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So there'll be 4 of those classes starting in October 4th, 2:00 in the afternoon. So I hope we get some students in there. And I do have one. If there's a student that would like a scholarship, they can contact me and I can give them a scholarship.
That's wonderful. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Yeah, very much looking forward to building the New Earth University hard campus in Mexico, which we are planning. We've already done the initial master planning, which I'll share with you in the days ahead. Well, I'll get on with you and Chancellor Dr. Nancy Ash. We'll get on together, and I'll need to explore some more ideas about the spatial dynamics connected to how we create the ultimate venue for 0-point learning in the first instance, which is how we're approaching the education piece at the New Earth Sanctuary, but also how we create this the most beautiful blank canvas upon which people can begin to paint.
It just sounds like a dream to me. That's like the biggest dream ever.
Yeah, my sister is getting very involved in holograms now. She's building holograms. You'll know my sister. She's the one that's accused of being a Satanist along with me, because she does fantastic statues of Greek, mythological characters. But no, but she's now getting into holograms, and as well as building huge installations and statues. So we're looking to we'll liaise with you on this, but we're looking to also create kind of in the parklands of the sanctuary. We really want to just turn it into a lot of it into art canvas, and just
oh, you have no idea the joy that's just welling up in me at the idea of it. I can just see it already. It's just so glorious.
Yeah, it was Jose Arguelles who taught me, didn't teach me, he reminded me that time is art, not money. And when we can switch our thinking from time is money, which is the sick, demented, technocratic, Luciferian life that most of us are indentured into today, when we can transition that perversion and mutation of our genius and our divinity, we can transition that into understanding that time doesn't exist, and insofar as it does, it's a fiction. It's an idea that simply creates an illusion, an illusory framing of so-called reality, a containment, an enclosure of genius, of the quantum mystery, in order that we no longer move and flow with that fluidity of the symbiotic interconnection that we innately have with the alpha and the omega, and instead collapse into these formulaic little systematized boxes and units of reality called time, tick-tock, 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 whether we're talking about seconds and minutes and hours, or whether we're talking about great arcs of civilizations and incarnational cycles. It doesn't really matter. because life is a very fragile thing. And every night we go to sleep and we die. Every one of us, we move into the hinterland of relativity, and we participate in all sorts of realms and dimensional states, and then come back into this 3D temporal realm to be butchered again by Klaus Schwab and his, by these fantasists. Yeah. Anyway, point being that time is the great fiction. And once we recognize that and can step away from that fiction, and every man and woman must at some point in their great noble path must step out of time altogether and rekindle relation with the great mystery, which is the fact that we are quantum and we are divine.
That is the exact reason to practice art, because there's people that go, oh, I can't meditate. I know you said you don't meditate, but I'm not saying that hinders you in any way. And there's people that say, oh, I want to get there, but I just can't connect, or I want to astral travel and I don't know how. But with art, because it's a mechanism and a vehicle to take you into that place of no time that you so often speak of, and it happens instantaneously, and it's a doorway. It's another doorway that we've forgotten about because we're so bogged down with everything else.
Let's play out on this, shall we?
Okay. Yeah, it's a foggy video, but it'll show you this is the greatest threat of all to art, because they first started out with this little Susie robot artist to get us warmed up to the idea that art was going to be completely taken over. Here's the artist being drawing that guy. There's her body. Then this is her first show, and he's looking at it like, oh my God. And then it goes more into computers, where computer art came really hot and fantastic, and some of it's very beautiful. And then the first AI generated faceless portraits came out, and then they got better and better. Even though that's as ugly as sin, they still got better. And now they're at a point where they can make you look really good, and they can even make you look like a fine artist painted you. And then they can also go in and feed off every single image that's ever been archived on the internet with a text prompt. They can go and find and steal styles of certain artists and eras of art, and they can bring it all together in a sort of collage. And so now even the AI has taken over even the imagination side, so that to a degree that, you just throw up your brushes and you say, what's the point? But it's not there yet, because you can still tell that it's AI rendered. You can tell it has a certain
because
thing about it.
Why? Because it's so Dali-esque and nonsensical?
Well, it is Dali-esque. No, it's somehow the way that it's put together. If you look at a lot of art, you can just tell this is AI generated. Look what it's doing to, original classic masterpieces. And this is a real collage portrait that I did to just show a contrast. And so it's a big threat to artists right now, especially if you do portraiture. You just might be out of a job, which is very, very sad. I did a video called AI Alert on my YouTube channel, and you can go and see in detail how much it has infiltrated the art world just in the last 3 years.
Fascinating. Jane, this has been a delightful hour and some, not quite sure how long this is. It's a little over an hour. Thank you for this. It's been wonderful. And I think at some point soon we should revisit our corrected history lectures, and because so much more has surfaced in the course of the last almost a year since we started doing that. So let's think about doing that. I'm thinking about including a new segment in every Lazarus Symposium moving forward on the updated, corrected history. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Well, thank you for joining us, darling girl, and to the audience.
Okay, thank you, Sacha. I love you.
Love you too, darling. And to the audience, check out the New Earth Horizon website, newearthhorizon.com. Check it out and chase the links there through to Jane's workshop at the New Earth University. All right, friends, over and out.